Okay, so today's video is going to be a solemn occasion. I'm going to do a deep dive, essentially a psychoanalysis, no less, of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle and their campaign of reputation destruction against the royal family, from King Charles and Camilla to particularly Prince William and his wife, Kate Middleton. We're going to break down, because there is quite a lot to unpack, we're going to break down as we unpack the why, when, where, how, which, all of the WH question words, and how. We're going to look at why they're doing this to the royal family, where they're doing it, in which rooms, and how. But just before we get into the main part of the video, I just want to read you a comment that I got on my video yesterday, because, you know, as a creative type, I like to read the comments. I like to see the feedback from people who watch my videos. And like all creative types, I have a tendency to fixate on the negative comments, perhaps a little bit too much, you know. And but it's also not a bad thing, you know. You don't want to completely ignore what could be constructive criticism. So I'm just going to read a piece of perhaps valuable constructive criticism that I received yesterday. Daniel, I used to love your videos because they were not only brilliant and hilarious, but delivered with such straight-faced, solemn mockery that they made sarcasm into a high art form. Well, thanks a bunch. But what's happened to you? Why all the bobbing around and high drama and close-ups? Don't know what you're talking about.
Horror has a face.
Horror has a face. Thank you, everybody, for that support. Where do you fucking draw the boundaries?
Enough with showing your molars already. What happened to the deliciously gentle satire and the control? Yours was one of the few channels that reliably made me laugh out loud. But you're not funny these days. Well,
Why don't you sod off back to Hoxton before they find out you're queer?
Chapter 62. Willie asked for a meeting. He wanted to talk about everything, the whole rolling catastrophe.
So I'm sure you're all familiar with this incident. It's the the big fight between William and Harry. But I feel that people haven't quite obsessed over it enough yet, because I've gone back and read this chapter. What's this? The 1980s, before we had the internet. No one reads books anymore. Oh, I read the chapter. I perused the many volumes in my library. I listened to this chapter again on Audible, like a normal person, alright? I didn't read a book like some mad scientist. Anyway, upon listening to this chapter again, I did notice a couple of things that sounded a lot more malevolent, a lot more manipulatively nasty in the language that Harry used, that perhaps at the first time of listening, it may have gone over our heads. So let's pay closer attention, please. This is important.
Just him and me, he said. As it happened, Meg was out of town, visiting girlfriends.
Beta!
No, I'm a modern man. I'm married myself. I know that your wife can take a weekend off, you know, with her girlfriends. I just hope to God there were no yachts involved, Harry. That sounded a bit gay. Oh, I hope there were no yachts involved, Harry. Like the snidey Jeremy Irons scar voice.
Oh, I shall practice my curtsy.
So his timing was perfect. I invited him over. An hour later, he walked into Knockcott, where he hadn't been since Meg first moved in.
Where he hadn't been since Meg moved in, because he was racist.
He looked piping hot. It was early evening. I offered him a drink, asked about his family. Everyone good. He didn't ask about mine.
He didn't ask about mine, because they were black.
He just went all in, chips to the centre of the table. Meg's difficult, he said.
The audacity, I thought. The caucasity.
Oh, really? She's rude. She's abrasive. She's alienated half the staff.
That's you got to appreciate. That is quite a difficult conversation to have with your brother, and he's been very direct and very honest, isn't he? She's rude, abrasive, she's alienating everyone. No one likes her. For God's sake.
Not the first time he'd parroted the press narrative.
The press narrative, this obsession that everyone who actually comes into contact with Meghan, like almost all of them except like the brain dead Hollywood celebrities who, you know, socialise with them at the polo club every now and again, and don't really actually have to spend any time with her, certainly not as a family, not as in-laws or anything like that. The people that actually meet her really dislike her, and they're just parroting the press narrative. You retard. Wake up. It's your brother. It's the people that work with her in the house that have to suffer her on a day-to-day basis. It's your own family. It's not the press.
Duchess difficult. All that bullshit.
If I were to give Harry the benefit of the doubt, if I'm going to steel man Harry a little bit here, he may be so thick, and I am steel manning him here, by the way. He may be so thick that he just doesn't realise that how people form their opinions, if you see what I mean. I think people can imagine being less intelligent than they are. They probably can't imagine being more intelligent than you are. Like, I don't think anyone can imagine what it's like to be a genius unless you are one, right? So, by the same token, perhaps Harry thinks that William is so thick that he just hears Duchess difficult, Duchess difficult, Duchess difficult, Meghan Markle's difficult in the press, and then he just believes it. So much so that he feels he has to go to his brother and tell him while his wife's out of town on a, you know, weekend with the girlfriends, and say to him, look, a very uncomfortable conversation, and your wife, she's really, nobody likes her. Because he heard a couple of headlines about her being difficult.
Rumours, lies from his team, tabloid rubbish, and I told him so, again. Told him I expected better from my older brother.
Oh, God, can you imagine having to build up the mental strength to go and say all that to your brother, and then he's just like, well, clearly the tabloids have got to you, William, right? You just, that'd tip you over the edge, and then when he pronounces better with a D, you just go, you fucking... Wouldn't you?
I was shocked to see that this actually pissed him off.
Isn't Harry one of these tossers that's always on about mental health awareness, right? And then he's actually gaslighting, as much as that word is overused. He's gaslighting William. William's like, okay, look, we've got to have a conversation. Nobody likes your wife. And he's like, oh, well, it's obvious that your opinions are formed from thin air. You twat!
Had he come here expecting something different? Did he think I'd agree that my bride was a monster? I told him to step back, take a breath, really ask himself, wasn't Meg his sister-in-law?
Oh, God, how patronising. Take a step back. Is Meg not human? Is she not your sister-in-law? God, he's trying so hard. I believe this actually took place because he's trying so hard to make paint William in a bad light that it's just... Can you imagine being gaslighted like that? You would just physically attack the person, wouldn't you? Yeah, you would, wouldn't you?
Wouldn't this institution be toxic for any newcomer? Worst case scenario, if his sister-in-law was having trouble adjusting to a new office, a new family, a new country, a new culture, couldn't he see his way clear to cutting her some slack?
Couldn't you see? Don't you think, worst case scenario, you're in the wrong? Can't you? And he doesn't even say, couldn't you just, give her a bit of time to just cut her some slack? Not even one figurative expression to cut her some slack, but no, couldn't you see the way clear to perhaps thinking about starting the process of cutting her some slack?
Couldn't you just be there for her? Help her? He had no interest in a debate.
Oh, what a bastard. He had no interest in a debate. Your brother is coming to you and saying, lots of people in the family, the employees, the staff, nobody likes her. We need to sort of talk about this problem. And you're just saying, no, she's perfect.
He'd come to lay down the law. He wanted me to agree that Meg was wrong and then agree to do something about it. Like what? Scold her? Fire her? Divorce her?
Scolding her in what sense? No. No, maybe not initially, Harry. Maybe you don't have to divorce her straight away, but perhaps have a conversation with her. Perhaps see that she is imperfect in some ways, you know, and maybe explain that certain things have to be done if you are to be a member of this institution. And, you know, not just say, oh, the press have clearly got to you, you know. That's annoying. That's narcissistic. That's gaslighting. You're a prick. I mean, that's not helpful, is it?
I didn't know. But Willie didn't know either. He wasn't rational. Every time I tried to slow him down, point out the illogic of what he was saying, he got louder.
From what you're relating, Harry, it doesn't sound like you were pointing out anything illogical about his argument. You were just flat out saying he was wrong, and that his opinions were other people's opinions, and that's just the worst kind of gaslighting that anything. It's just so unbelievably frustrating when people do that. You know, you give your opinion from your experiences, and somebody goes, well, maybe the reason you think that is because, you know, other people who are more intelligent and have a better personality, a bigger personality than you, and have their own thoughts and opinions that are really formed from their experiences. Maybe that's rubbed off on you a bit because you're just a bit thick.
We were soon talking over each other, both of us shouting. Among all the different riotous emotions coursing through my brother that afternoon, one really jumped out at me. He seemed aggrieved. He seemed put upon that I wasn't meekly obeying him, that I was being so impertinent as to deny him or defy him, to refute his knowledge, which came from his trusted aides.
Even in the novel, even as you tell us what was said between you, you are gaslighting him. You're saying that his opinions didn't come from him. They came from his aides. They came from the tabloids. They came from the headlines. Right? You're saying that the reason he was angry was because you refused to flatly obey him. No, it's because you're just outright saying that what he's saying is incorrect and not an opinion that anyone could rationally form about Meghan Markle. Nobody could ever think that she is rude, abrasive, and difficult. Nobody. Only the tabloids who are all racist. Right? That's what you're saying to your brother. So that's why he launched himself at you.
There was a script here, and I had the audacity not to be following it. He was in full air mode, and couldn't fathom why I wasn't dutifully playing the role of the spare.
This is what all narcissistic, it's kind of linked to this sort of woke culture as well, isn't it, a little bit? I don't want to get political about it, but it kind of is, isn't it? It's this idea that everything is about power. Anything, an argument you have with your brother is just a power dynamic, isn't it? The only reason he can be right and think that he is right about something is because he's heir to the throne and you're the spare, right? No! Maybe he's just talking to you like a human and he's really frustrated as a human, as a brother, that you're not listening to him because you're just obsessed. You're an ideologue, right? You're a narcissist.
I was sitting on the sofa. He was standing over me. I remember saying,
"Please, don't do anything sexual to me."
"You need to hear me out, Willie." He wouldn't. He simply would not listen. To be fair, he felt the same about me. He called me names, all kinds of names.
What, like? Spaz. Did he call you a spaz, Harry?
He said I refused to take responsibility for what was happening. He said I didn't care about my office and the people who worked for me. Willie, give me one example of... He cut me off. Said he was trying to help me. Are you serious? Help me? Sorry, is that what you call this? Helping me? For some reason that really set him off. He stepped towards me, swearing.
He called me a spaz and a wanker and a todger face.
To that point, I'd been feeling uncomfortable, but now I felt a bit scared. I stood, brushed past him, went out to the kitchen to the sink. He was right on my heels, berating me, shouting. I poured a glass of water for myself and one for him as well. I handed it to him. I don't think he took a sip. Willie, I can't speak to you when you're like this. He set down the water, called me another name, then came at me. It all happened so fast, so very fast. He grabbed me by the collar, ripping my necklace, and he knocked me to the floor. I landed on the dog's bowl, which cracked under my back, the pieces cutting into me. I lay there for a moment, dazed, then got to my feet and told him to get out. Come on, hit me. You'll feel better if you hit me. Do what? Come on, we always used to fight. You'll feel better if you hit me. No, only you'll feel better if I hit you.
My God, Harry, you're like Jesus Christ and Mahatma Gandhi all rolled into one.
Please, just leave. He left the kitchen, but he didn't leave Notcott. He was in the sitting room, I could tell. I stayed in the kitchen. 2 minutes passed, 2 long minutes. He came back looking regretful and apologized. He walked to the front door. This time I followed. Before leaving, he turned and called back. You don't need to tell Meg about this. You mean that you attacked me? I didn't attack you, Harold. Fine. I won't tell her. Good. Thank you. He left. I looked at the phone. A promise is a promise, I told myself, so I couldn't call my wife, much as I wanted to. But I needed to talk to someone, so I rang my therapist. Thank God she answered.
Thank God she answered.
What a melt.
I apologized for the intrusion, told her I didn't know who else to call. I told her I'd had a fight with Willie. He knocked me to the floor. I looked down and told her that my shirt was ripped, my necklace was broken. We'd had a million physical fights in our lives, I told her. As boys, we'd done nothing but fight. But this felt different. The therapist told me to take deep breaths. She asked me to describe the scene several times. Each time I did, it seemed more like a bad dream.
I wonder what his army companions make of all this. You know, the ones who watch their friends getting blown to bits and stuff. He got a dog bowl in his back. Who's the real hero? Who's really got PTSD?
And made me a bit calmer. I told her, I'm proud of myself. Proud, Harry? Why is that?
Yeah, I might ask you the same question, Harold. What are you proud of?
I didn't hit him back. I stayed true to my word. Didn't tell Meg. But not long after she returned from her trip, she saw me coming out of the shower and gasped. Haz, what are those scrapes and bruises on your back? I couldn't lie to her. She wasn't that surprised, and she wasn't at all angry. She was terribly sad.
So I guess a promise isn't a promise then, and you just thought you'd tell the whole world. Anyway, I'm done with this one. You get the idea. He's a narcissist, wants everyone to see what a victim he is and what an evil bastard William is, right? I'll see you in the next one.